Hello everyone, DM Gashbad here, and it's finally happened. I've finally gotten enough monsters to be able to play a normal level 3 adventure from Warhammer Quest right out of the role-playing book. It took me a while, but I finally got it, and so that means the Louts are back, the Louts of Chaos. My marauding adventuring party / support group whose 12th step involves overthrowing the kingdoms of the south for the glory of the Chaos Gods. It's been a couple months, so I'll give you a quick refresher of what those guys are like before we go into the adventure itself. First of all, we have my nominal leader, Leaf the Legbiter. He is a barbarian level 3. He has a number of healing items and lucky charms which give him rerolls during the adventure. He has a mighty toughness of 9 because of all the armor that he's wearing. A very healthy 27 wounds, weapon skill, and strength of 4, 2 attacks. He's got a whole bunch of magic items, including a little known magic item called the Hammer of Sigmar. Is it any good? Who cares? He actually really likes this magical club that he picked up. It gives him +1 to hit and +1 damage per battle level, so it's +3 damage. Next on the initiative order is Hundred Left Balloon, my wizard. Hundred is level 3 with 16 wounds and 17 power, so these are additional points of power that he can use to cast his magic spells in the course of a game. He also has a healing potion and a couple of lucky charms. His favorite weapon is an axe, which is +1 to hit and +1 attack, although he does have his wizard staff, which is -1 to hit, but it also gives him 1 more point of toughness, which brings him up to toughness 6 because of the Ring of Protection and Bogrot's Crown, which he also runs around with. He now has a mighty 2 attacks at weapon skill 3 and strength 3, and his spells are Confuse, Lightning Bolt, Heal Wounds, Freeze, Cure Small Wounds, Levitate, Firehammer, and Resurrection. The next 2 characters have the same initiative, so I have to roll off before every adventure to find out who goes first in the initiative order. And this time it's Ivor Shando, my dwarf. Well, my chaos dwarf. Toughness 9, again thanks to a whole bunch of armor that he's wearing. 23 wounds, he's got weapon skill of 5, strength 3, and 2 attacks. His favorite weapon is an axe that is +1 damage per level, so +3 damage with each hit, and also parries incoming attacks on a 6. But he's also bringing along his Boots of Battle, so he can kick people. It's -1 to hit, but it is +1 strength. He has some rerolls and healing items as well, and he has the skills Killing Blow, which is +2 wounds on the roll of a 6, and Grudge Lord. Once per dungeon, he can target 1 monster. He can get +1 to hit against that monster, and earn double gold if he kills it. And finally, that brings us to our pit fighter, Naughtiness Maximus, who is at a mighty level 4. He is now toughness 5 thanks to his full suit of pit fighter armor that he just got, and 34 wounds, and that is helped out by the Bracelet of Eshain, which gives him an additional 3 starting wounds. Stat-wise, he has weapon skill 4, strength 4, and 2 attacks, but that doesn't really tell the whole story because he has a magical fist spike, which causes an extra d6 wounds on the tit roll of a 6 and also gives him an extra 2 attacks. He has 2 knee spikes, which also give him additional attack each, and he has toe blades, which is yet another attack, doing an extra d6 wounds on the roll of a 6, and it does not reduce for armor. And this is all on top of the fact that he has gotten an extra damage increase, so that for his damage rolls, he rolls 2d6 instead of 1. Yeah, each of those characters has a bunch more magic items and skills that I could talk about, but in the interest of brevity, let's leave that aside and go straight to the adventure. So, I shuffle up the 5 starting objective rooms from the Warhammer Quest box, and I draw the Fighting Pit, which is a nice classic. I roll a die and I get the 3 result, which means our adventure will be Blood Debt. So it turns out that some months ago, our adventurers got into a little bit of trouble and were rescued by this wizard. As payment for this good deed, the wizard took 10 years of memories from each of my characters and stored them in a cursed mirror. Unsurprisingly, we totally forgot about all this. Maybe we just thought it was another blackout until the wizard comes up to us and says, "Hey, you can repay this debt by going to one of my rival's dungeons and killing off his pet monsters." I'm sure the Louts had a bit of an internal debate as to whether or not they actually wanted some of these memories back, but in the end they thought that fighting a bunch of monsters sounded like good fun, and so they accepted the task. Technically, I could have just paid this wizard 2,000 gold and been done with it, and I absolutely have that money lying around, but whatever, I'm trying to get up to level 4 here. This adventure is set up in much the usual way, with one exception. When we get to the objective room, the fighting pit, we don't roll on the objective room monsters, and instead we just get 2 Minotaurs. At level 1, this would have been a pretty big problem, but at the level we're at, this is actually much easier than things we would have rolled up on the chart. The problem is that at any moment, the rival wizard could appear in the dungeon with a whole batch of new monsters that he's just collected. So on any power score of 1, when we get an unexpected event, we have to roll an additional die, and on 1 or 2, the evil wizard shows up with a whole bunch of new monsters, and then we roll on the standard objective room monster table. And of course, we're using the advanced objective room chart from the role-playing book, which means that he could show up with a bunch of monsters from level 3, level 4. It could be bad. Now, there's also a chance that these monsters never show up if I roll well enough, but they could also show up in the middle of another tough encounter or in the middle of a corridor or some other place where I'm separated, and it could be a real issue. But that's the task that's in front of us. Let's see how we do. So I set up the dungeon deck as usual. The fighting pit goes into a stack of 6 random dungeon cards. We shuffle those up and then put 6 more cards on top of that for a deck of 13. I draw the top card and I get a T-section right away. This feels familiar. So down each of the passageways, I split the remaining dungeon card decks, drawing from the bottom as usual. That means each passageway has 6 cards on it, but I know the one to the top has 4 cards from that initial group of 7 cards that might have the fighting pit in it. So there's a better chance of me finding the fighting pit going that way than the other way, so I'm going to go there. So I deploy my guys right there and we're ready to start. For my first power score of the game, I roll a 6, which is a nice start. And of course, I add 2 to that because my wizard is level 3 for a total of 8. Doesn't really matter. All we can do right now is explore the next room, and we draw a guard room. Cool, there's going to be monsters in this first room. New round, we get a power score total of 7 this time, having rolled a 5. All my guys move into the room as you see here. Now, normally I would just line up on one of the side walls, but I'm feeling a little confident. My guys have gotten kind of strong, so I'm going to try and save myself a little bit of time. I'm going to put Leaf the Legbiter right next to the doorway so that if I don't get any monsters, or we're able to deal with these monsters really quickly, he can explore right away. 100 is still my healer, and he's a little bit more vulnerable than the rest of the guys, so he's still going to go into the corner where hopefully he won't get attacked too much. But the remainder of my guys, Ivor Shando the dwarf and Nidinus Maximus my pit fighter, they'll just go in the middle of the room like that. They've got a lot of attacks, they've got a lot of toughness. They should be fine. So now we draw an event card to see what was waiting for us in the guard room, and we get a monster. We get D3 gigantic spiders, and I roll the average of 2. Not a bad way to start. Well, yeah, we fought gigantic spiders several times in the past. They're worth a lot of gold and could, in some circumstances, be a decent challenge. They've got 20 health each, and their attack webs us, which could take us out of the combat until we can roll under our strength. And against any web characters, they do d6 damage per attack, and they've got 2 of them, so it can go straight through that monstrous amount of armor that we have. That said, I'm not really that worried. Like I said, I have fought these guys in the past, and while on paper they are kind of threatening, they haven't really lived up to that potential so far. Another weird aspect of these gigantic spiders is that I've established in previous games that they take up 4 squares, and I didn't think about this when I stuck my guys in the middle of the room, but that means that only 1 spider can fit in there. I drew a random warrior token and I got the pit fighter, so I put the first spider in contact with Nidinus Maximus, attacking him, and the other guy had to go out into the hallway. Usually I think that's going to be a benefit for me, being able to lock out monsters like that, but I think the odds are pretty good that I'm going to kill this first spider, so in this case I don't really think it's going to matter, but something to keep in mind for the future. But we're on to the next round. I roll a 3, which gives us a power score of 5. Leaf is up first in the attack order, and first he has to roll to see if he goes berserk, but he also doesn't roll a 1 and stand around slashing his friends. Leaf moves up with his favorite club, and he's got 2 attacks at +1 to hit, meaning that he's going to hit this thing on a 2+, and sure enough, he scores 2 hits, and not only that, does really well for the damage, and drops 16 points of damage on the first gigantic spider. It's only got 4 health left. That means Hundred gets to move up with his favorite axe. It gives him a total of 3 attacks hitting on 4+, and he gets 2 hits out of that. Not only that, does 5 points of damage, killing off a gigantic spider. Way to go, wizard. With the big arachnid out of the way, that clears a path for Ivor Shando to go into the doorway and fight the other gigantic spider in the hall. He's got 2 attacks hitting on 3s, and both of them hit. Even with that +3 damage though, he rolls kind of low, but he still ends up doing 9 points to the monster. But then he busts out his boots of battle and lands another kick to the spider, doing another 5. That means it's looking real bad for the spider as Nidinus Maximus moves up. He's got his magical fist spike, and he gets 4 attacks with that thing these days. Unfortunately for Nidinus, he only lands one of those attacks, and even with his 2d6 damage plus 4 strength, he only does 5 points to the spider, meaning it's still alive. But that's okay, he's not done yet. He has his 2 knee spike attacks, and with that, he finishes it off. So first encounter down, and the guys did pretty well, not too rusty after all these months. We go into the treasure table to see what we've got, and it just tells us to draw a treasure card, and we get the darting steel daggers. The darting steel daggers are interesting. They give you +1 attack, and they hit automatically, which is real nice. Unfortunately, you can't add your strength into the damage. They always do 1d6 damage. I guess that could be useful fighting snotlings or something really weak like that, but it's not going to help most of my guys. I go ahead and give it to 100 Luftballoon the Wizard. He's got the lowest strength, so I guess it's less of a handicap for him. Plus, a wizard fighting with magical paired daggers is kind of cool. But now it's a new round, roll up a new power score, get a 6, so that goes up to 8. Again, no unexpected event, which is good. We move up to the far side of the room, and we explore in the exploration phase, and we find a corridor. New round, power score, total of 6, and we move into the corridor like that. I have forgotten that I don't like moving in that formation, because if something attacks us from behind, then my guys are stuck. New round, power score of 4, so I didn't have to pay for my bad formation in the hallway. We move up to the doorway and explore. Now, if you'll remember, each of the passageways had 6 cards on it. We've already been through 2, and the bottom 4 cards could hold the objective room, the fighting pit. So this is the first opportunity for me to find that, and I do! First opportunity, and I find it. Oh, this has been a really short dungeon. Not only that, I know what the monsters are in this room. It's 2 Minotaurs. That's not going to take me very long to get through. Unless I roll an unexpected event in the next round or 2, this is going to be a really short game. New round, I do not get an unexpected event. Total power score of 4, and I move into the fighting pit and we spawn those 2 Minotaurs. I hardly know what's going on here. This isn't how this game is supposed to go. But on to the next round, and again, don't roll that 1, roll a 2. Total power score of 4, and we start off with Leaf again. He doesn't go berserk, doesn't hurt his friends, so he just takes out his standard 2 attacks to attack the Minotaur in front of him. I do have to check for fear, roll a d6, and add my level. If I get over a 5, then I'm not afraid. Sure enough, Leaf is not afraid, and he ends up getting only 1 hit, but that is a lot of damage. 8 points of damage to the Minotaur. Over half his health is gone. 100's up next, also not afraid, gets his 3 attacks and hits twice. He's only strength 3, but he beats the odds and gets the remaining 7 wounds to the Minotaur, killing him. 100 has had a really awesome combat day. Hasn't cast a single spell, but apparently it's not necessary. So just 1 Minotaur left. Let's see if Ivor and Nidinus can take care of it and end this game in record time. Ivor is also unafraid, and he's going to use his Grudge Lord skill, because why not? He might get double gold for killing this thing. It also makes him +1 to hit. So his 2 normal attacks both hit, but again rolls kind of poorly for his damage and only does 8 points of damage. He does land a kick as well, which is great, but then again, he rolls a 1 for damage and only does a single wound. That means it's Nidinus Maximus' turn, and he's almost certainly going to kill this Minotaur. It's really just more of a formality, so we take all 4 of the fist spike attacks, and we miss with every single one. Again, he passed his fear test, he just needed 4 pluses, but he completely whiffed. Still, he does have his 2 knee spike attacks, so he rolls those up, and he only hits once, and then really underperforms on the damage and only does 4 points of damage. But of course, 6 different attacks from Nidinus Maximus isn't quite enough. He still gets his toe blades. This is his last attack, and so we'll see if maybe this Minotaur can hold on 1 more round, get that unexpected event, get an extra roll on the objective room monster tables to slow my heroes down. Nidinus will hit with his toe blades on a 4+, and he does it, and this time does 3 points of damage. Again, much less than you'd expect, but more than the Minotaur had. And the Minotaur is dead and the game is over. Well, that was ridiculous. I'm sorry about that. If I had known this adventure was going to be like that, I could have done this months ago. Okay, tell you what, this one doesn't really count. I know I said at the end of the next adventure that I was going to try and bring everyone up to level 4, but we made barely any gold in this, and the people who really needed it didn't get it. And I really didn't get to see any of my new monsters that I painted up for level 3, so this is just a quick side adventure just to get our memories back, and then we'll go on to the real level 3 adventure, which I'll do soon, maybe next week or something. In the meantime, the only thing to do to wrap up this adventure now is to get our memories back. But apparently the only problem is that in the time that's elapsed, the wizard has forgotten whose memories are whose. So each of my characters have to draw a warrior counter to find out whose memories they actually end up with. As far as game effects go, it doesn't actually matter at all, but it's just something weird that occurs in Warhammer Quest, which is of course half of the game. Anyway, Leaf draws a warrior counter first, and he gets his own memories. Well, that should clear up a lot of things. There's probably a lot of stuff in his home life that now makes a lot more sense. Hunter Left Balloon draws a counter next, and he gets his own memories. That's cool, all that book learning that he does. Number one, he doesn't forget it. And number two, none of the other characters are going to be super bored by having to live with those memories. So now we got Ivor and Naughtiness next. I guess it's okay if they swap their memories. Ivor draws first. He gets his own memories. And that means Naughtiness Maximus, the only counter left is his, so he gets his own memories. All four characters now have their own memories in their head. Everything has gone right for the Louts of Chaos this game. Just insane. Makes me really worried about the next game. There is a trap from Lair of the Orc Lord that uses this same mechanic, and I never once came close to having all of my warriors draw their own counters. I figured the odds of this have got to be astronomical, got to be crazy. And then I went and figured it out, and it's only like 1 in 24. That's really not all that impressive sounding. But still, my guys are happy. It's been a successful game, very short. We'll get right back into this. We'll see if there's a more challenging dungeon somewhere over the horizon. In the meantime, leave a comment below if you have any questions, observations, or concerns, and I will see you on the next one.